Good evening to you all. My name is Emmanuel Odeke. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk. Today is the 31st of January 2023. So those who were praying for January to come to an end, now today you can say praise the Lord. It has ended. But today we are here and we will be discussing morality in Uganda and what is happening around the corners of our schools, around the corners of whatever is happening. That's what we'll be discussing today. Looking at schools, looking at the NGO Bureau, looking at the LGBT and their ways of recruiting young people into this thing, why they have encroached schools in particular. Are their practices and strategies changing? That's what we'll be discussing today. So with me in the studio is quite a huge number of people compared to what I normally host, but all of them are here on purpose, so they'll be discussing those things. To my extreme right is Reverend Francis Osire. Now, Reverend Francis is one of the pastors at St. James Mub's Chapel. Now, that has a link to Makerere, so you are sure of you know the entire university is here. Reverend, would you want to say hello to our people?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Good evening, our dear viewers. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't touch the dial, and let's have fellowship and let's share together. And a happy new year to you all. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Next to him, on the immediate left, is Mrs. Opolot Elizabeth. She's the National Director for Global Institute. Mrs. Opolot, I want to mention it the botanical way. Do you want to say hello to our people?
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Good evening to our viewers. I'm delighted to be here this evening, and I want to thank God that has given us yet another year, much as January has come to an end. We're grateful that God has enabled us to reach this day.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you can see Elizabeth is one of those who are praying for January to end. And then to my immediate right is Mr. Kyeyune, who is an educationist. So I want to imagine he's a teacher. That is my assumption anyway. But he's an educationist, only that he didn't come with a red pen. For us teachers, you must have a red pen everywhere you go.
Ready to mark.
Ready to mark. And would you want to say hello to our viewers?
Oh yes, good evening, all the viewers of Family TV. Thank you so much for always keeping yourselves tuned to the source of wisdom.
You can definitely hear there is a source of wisdom here, and every time we come here we enrich lives. We don't speak things that will destroy, but we speak things that will definitely add value to you. Now let me start with Reverend Francis. This LGBT thing, where is it coming from?
Very difficult question, but we will try. In some circles, people say LGBT. First of all, what is it? Maybe we needed to ask ourselves, when we are talking about LGBT, what are we talking about? We are talking about a moral issue. We are talking about sin. We are talking about something that we can even trace from a historical perspective. And so LGBT in full, actually now they even add the LGBTQI. So it's, and there's another letter that I don't want to bring here. But that is about lesbianism, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex. So all that package. And it is really to do with sexual perversion. I don't want to call it sexual morality, but I want to call it sexual perversion. And as a Christian, and as a custodian of morals in this country and in the church, it's a sin against the order of nature, against the law of God, and against what God intended humanity to be. Now, where did this thing come from? Historically, it is said that it existed even in Uganda in some communities. But I don't have those facts yet put together. For example, there is hearsay that one of the things that led to the death of the Uganda martyrs was actually to do with the homosexuality. But I have not yet found proof and evidence to that effect. But what I am sure of, what I know and what I have read and found out, is that it came to Africa and most parts of the world and to Uganda through the United States of America. Now let me just say something here, that if you want, you can read the letter or the message of the administrator of the United States Agency for International Development. He put it point blank in 2014 that for any country, for any community, for any development program that has to access help or funding from the United States of America, there is a directive from the President of the United States of America that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex issues have to be incorporated and have to be packaged and have to be part and parcel. Actually, it has to be promoted. And so I see that what I know is that it was actually imported from the United States of America. And then I would just say it's actually not an issue for Uganda. It is not an issue for Africa. It came into Uganda, it came into Africa from the United States of America. And it is systematically. Now for people who are interested in, initially when issues of sexual perversion, homosexuality, lesbianism, when they came up, the American Psychological Association took it to be actually a mental disorder. But systematically, it was even removed from there. And there are facts and that can be actually not disputed. And so it is something that has come slowly but surely, packaged in different ways and by different professionals and in different methods. And unfortunately, even the church, to some extent, has had its own share. And that is why we now find that especially where I belong and subscribe to, the Anglican Communion, has had kind of to begin to think of actually separating, because part of the community says, no, this is not our thing. Part of the community says, no, this is the way to go. And so there is a lot of that tension that is created around, and we don't know how we are going to deal with it, but we have to take it head on.
Those are serious matters here. Mr. Kyeyune, initially we knew education institutions as custodians of morality, custodians of values, custodians, people who were stewards of good morals. Today, lesbianism and homosexuality are being seen in schools. Initially, when this thing came through, I think the target was NGOs and then churches. Are these people changing their strategies? Why are they targeting schools in particular in this particular time?
Okay, one thing I need to put very right. The practice, the whole behavior is in our communities. Actually, the public out there has it rather upside down to imagine that this is in schools. That is the wrong concept society is speaking on. We need to accept that this is a habit that is in our country, it's a habit in our countries, in our communities. It's just like we had Corona. Corona was not only in schools. Maybe schools were closed because there was a fear that once it gets in schools, the spread would be now at a very terrific level. But one thing we must appreciate, the whole country, the whole world is rotten. Now, the only pain we have in this is that the masterminders of this are targeting a given age group, maybe from around 12 to 22, 25, and we have seen these practices even in a bigger age range. But the most vulnerable and the targeted group is the school-going children. By the way, not only primary, secondary, because these are more active adolescents, and worst pronounced at university levels. So why the public is now coming up to finger point at schools, maybe because of a few cases that have been cited out. But what is more painful, the cases that have not been identified, I think, constitute a bigger percentage. You find in a school, one child or two have been identified in a term, and that causes great alarm. But we just have no knowledge of what is happening in our societies. Schools remain custodians of morals, and we are truly at the forefront of disciplining. But we forget one thing, that even when we're playing our cardinal role of disciplining, it is now the community, the parents, that weaken and tie up our hands. Because the moment you come up ready to punish, ready to foster discipline, chances are that you're going to clash with so many parents who just don't want their children to be touched or even to be talked to. But there are vices, me and you know it. There are vices you just cannot eliminate with a soft talk. There are times when you must pick up a cane and put kids right. We all went through this, and that is why today we can proudly say morally we are upright. So my only pain is that the promoters of this are targeting our children. Now look at it this way. Children have been in the holidays. Whatever they have learned, no one has an idea. And very soon they are going to be back in school to practice every other trash they have learned in the holidays, either through socializing with so many other people in the communities, or even on their phones that you parents bought for the children. Whatever they search, the network, the communications they make, nobody has an idea. But trust me, among the vices learned through use of those mobile phones could perhaps be these businesses of homosexuality. Now, once they get back in school, they begin practicing definitely. So for us, once we identify one or two, we shall immediately call back the parent. Please speak your child, this has been seen. And I told you that we don't only send the children back home because we really want to spoil or tarnish their future or bury it, but we are saying, parent, get to know what your child is doing. And in any case, do the guidance and counseling, because this child needs to be guided. Perhaps they don't know what they are doing. They may not even know the dangers of this. And the promoters of this are using money. They are luring our children into this by using money. You find children have been promised this, and they are even paid either monthly or weekly. They are even promoters planted in schools. The more souls they win into the habit, the more their accounts grow fatter. Now, children are in a mess. So, what are we doing as schools? We are doing continuous guidance and counseling to the children. But we are saying, as we do this, even parents at home should play the same role. Let us not blacklist any school because a case has been identified. There are equally 1,000 cases in our communities. And by the way, parents are out there dying silently. They are keeping quiet because culturally, if your child was identified in such a vice, no parent would publicly come up to say, my child was got red-handed. Every parent would just silently die with this sin. But then,
Mr. Kyeyune,
yes.
if I may, just the previous week, this last week, the deputy speaker, while chairing one of the sittings, made it open, and he said, it is no longer something hidden.
Yes, we should all come up and
in
fight
some
it.
schools, students are actually even afraid of moving in the night within the school. Now, I think we need to note that these children take more time in schools than they take in community, except the third term holiday. The rest of this other time, they come for 2 weeks, other classes even a week. So now, I don't know.
I understand that controversy, but when people say they take more time in school, it's as if there is a direct blame or attack on school managers, that either they are at the forefront of promoting this. Just like we have theft in school, or you can have children coupling. These are all cases we have always had. All children have taken drugs. You just identify or land on one practicing such, and you expel. So similarly with homosexuality, it's not part of school curriculum. These are challenges we are getting as school managers. You find children, apart from the normal indiscipline perhaps we are used to, we are now identifying another bigger problem coming up. But we are saying, for us as school managers, this is not taught at school, but rather the society. By the way, it is possible that my child left home when she was very innocent. She didn't know anything, only to land on a culprit at school. Now look at those challenges in there, okay? And when this child is later expelled, she will comfortably, conveniently say, this child A who was teaching me this, we met at school B. Now the parent will go very bitter that my child learned this from school, and therefore puts the entire blame onto the school managers. But I think our position must also be understood. I agree that there are schools we are still making serious survey. That's why on air here, I cannot say school A, we have this evidence here. These are things we still have to research and make more investigations, where teachers have also been used to promote this. And maybe they are paid. These are rumors coming up from different corridors, but no clear source or open information has been tabled. That even some school managers, in a bid to get some donations or support, they have been used to promote this. But trust me, our research is still going on and investigations. You can't completely rule it out. And I still say that with homosexuality, let us not only imagine it is within the young age. There are men who are pretending to be married and well known to be Mr. So-and-so married to Madam so-and-so. But undercover, that so-called Mr. is doing the same in another hidden corner. Because I told you they even have hotels in Kampala here where such is maybe legalized, practiced, and it is known. You find a woman well known to be married and respected as a married woman, but undercover, she's also practicing the same. That is where the world has reached. I cited an example of one of the cases we handled in a given school. This was a parent who went to Germany. She got married to a woman, quote me right, she got married to a woman, and it became a very powerful business. She's earning a lot of money. She got her firstborn and also connected her to another woman in the same country. Now, they are using the very last born at home. They have also recruited her into the same business, telling her this is now the best business, the way to go. This is now the girl we identified in one of the schools, and we had to give her serious counseling. And she tells us, there is no any hot business like this business. It's what my mother is doing, it's what my elder sister is doing, and trust me, they have also convinced me to do the same. And she was busy looking for a girlfriend, a girl looking for a girlfriend. So, we are in danger. Ladies and gentlemen, out there, before we begin a blame game where everyone wants now to blacklist schools as the masterminders of this, I think the world is rotten. Everyone should come up strongly to condemn this practice, whether in community, whether in schools, whether in prisons. Everywhere it is cited, it should be condemned in the strict sense of the word.
Interesting things here, and I'm sure it is time due for a short break. When we return from the short break, Mrs. Elizabeth Opolot will kick us on just at that exact point when we return from the break.
Family TV, enriching lives.
Let's talk.
Let's talk. Let's Talk is an uncensored program on Family TV that attempts to answer questions that are unanswered within our church settings. Questions like sex and money, drugs and alcoholism, prophecy and prophets in our country. So, catch us every Tuesday on Family TV as we explore different topics and make attempts to answer the different life topics. With me, Emmanuel Odeke, let's talk. Welcome back from that short break. We are still discussing morality in Uganda, and there are very wise people in this studio. I wish you'd get some of those bits that happen away from air. So like I said earlier, Mrs. Opolot will kick start us in this particular one.
Yes.
What do you make of what is happening today?
Okay. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I, for one, I think I am an educationist also, an educator. But I think I also feel that the question is what has happened? Where have things gone wrong? And I want to think that one of the things that might have happened is that we've gone away from what society used to do and to be. The community at some point in time, used to be responsible for everyone. A child was a responsibility of the entire community. In other words, the behavior was entirely dependent on the entire community. As we talk now, it is more or less just the father and the mother. In other words, the nuclear family. Now, that makes it a problem because this child will feel I'm only answerable to my father and my mother. And you get shocked when a small child like as young as say 4, 5, when anybody in the community tries to discipline or to question, they'll say, Gonzala, are you my father? Who are you? In other words, who are you to tell me this? Go and tell your child. Now, because of that, there is no more fear. And remember, unfortunately, this parent whom we feel should be the one is possibly an absentee parent, is not there. And because he's not there or she's not there, this child is unable to get the discipline, to get the guidance, to get the counsel, and in so doing, they are just free to do whatever they want to do. No wonder when some of these vices come in, they'll find a person that doesn't have any morals, any values, and therefore they will take on whatever will come their way. So I feel the society has kind of failed to do what it used to do at time X. And yet the person who is supposed to be there to do it has somehow left it. They feel there are many reasons. One can say, I'm not bold enough to say this to my child. Another will say, I don't have time. And yet, for us to get anything out of this, it is going to require that we have time. Avail time. Make sure you have time with your child. Make friends with them so that you are able to talk to them. Make sure you have all opportunity to talk to them. Even when you're driving, maybe you're taking the child to school, maybe you're going to church, maybe you're going for shopping. You see anything, maybe you see some person moving in a certain way, dressed in a certain way. Use that as an opportunity to talk and to counsel and to guide. The moment we fail to do that, we are going to face this, and it is going to become worse and worse. So let us go back to the roots. Let us go back to where we were. I think we shall make a headway. Because these things, maybe they have long been planned, because it couldn't have just all of a sudden come to what it is. They must have thought about it, maybe they have planned it, but what will save us is for us to ensure we talk to these children, we build in them morals and values that they can live by, that they can stand on, and surely when these storms come, they will not be shaken. They will be able to brave the times, and we shall be able to go through it.
Reverend Francis, you did mention that it is in black and white for any funding to any development program in any of the countries, which includes Uganda. It must have an element of LGBT and whatever it is.
It has to be promoted, and they have to be respected. It has to be promoted, and they have to be respected.
Now, in that angle, there are NGOs, and most of the NGOs in Uganda get funding from the US, Britain, and name them. What is happening with the NGO Bureau in Uganda? Are they still practicing their original mandate as they should be, or the moment they finish registering the company or the NGO, that is done business?
Before I get there, I wanted first to say that we are not blacklisting schools. I think these promoters of this practice have found fertile ground in the schools, because the schools gather youngsters from all corners.
And within the age group they want.
And now that age group, like we all know, is going through what I would do in quotes call turbulent changes. You know, there are many things that are happening in them. Secondly, that age group is very curious. They like experimenting a lot. And so most of the time, out of their curiosity, out of their interactions, because again, that age group, peers are more important. And so you find out of that, they fall is a prey. But also the other guys are so subtle and so strategic that they know that when they begin with a child at 12, at that young tender age, they have that one for generations. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations. And so they know that if that one can promote for all his or her lifetime, then they are really in business. Now, coming to the issue of the NGOs, of course, most of the NGOs access funding from outside. And if you follow closely, for many of the NGOs now, the thing has to do with human rights. Now, we are only talking about human rights at the expense of morality. We are talking about human rights at the expense of the right relationship with God. And being a church leader, that is the angle from which I want to come. Now, what is happening in the NGO Bureau, what is happening in the NGO world, I may not say, I may not have so much authority to talk about it, but reading from newspapers, listening to news, you then begin to see that some of these NGOs are actually promoters. And I don't want to begin naming some of the NGOs here on this studio, but I know that it is something that everybody has heard about. A number of them operating in Uganda and concentrating around Kampala and doing quite a lot of work concerned with human rights, development programs, but you know, behind the scenes, they come up with all kinds of things. And so I want to think that there is a need for people who run these development programs really to define not only their mandate, but to make sure that they take into consideration the issue of morals in this country, that we don't want to compromise. And why is this very critical? Even in the case of the United States of America, the moment they started with what they call the sexual revolution, things started to go wayward. And it is as if the perpetrators of sexual revolution and moral perversion realized that if you want to kill a country, if you want to spoil a country, if you want to bring a country down, then target a man, make him sexually immoral, and that is the end of the family, and that is the end of the church, and that is the end of the community, and that is the end of the nation. And so slowly but surely, you find that America, for example, was founded on the 10 Commandments. And you know, slowly but surely, they drifted and they put that aside. So what did they do? They stopped prayer from public schools. They stopped Bible reading from public schools. And so America is ending where it is now, coming up with all this. That is a very big challenge. And the other thing that I want to quickly add here, like my sister has said, that, there is also a whole challenge of parenting. From a counseling point of view, sexual perversion is actually partly a cry for help. In some of these cases, you find there is a gap that was created in an individual's life. And once that gap was created, some of these characters and some of these elements found themselves bridging that gap. And they found is a prey, and they found somebody, and they found some people, and they found groups they could actually sweep, and they went with them, and they accepted, and they took everything wholeheartedly. So I may not want to point a finger right now, but we have all read from newspapers, and we have heard testimonies of some people who are alleged to be victims, and what has happened to them from some of these NGOs. So I want to suggest right here that maybe some of those NGOs need to be investigated and get to the bottom of the matter, how true it is, how extensive has the damage been, and then the appropriate action is taken.
Mrs. Opolot, what do we do? Things are going a mess. What do? We need to save the children. We need to save this nation because things are. I saw a clip somewhere in Nigeria where a gay bishop was going into the church, and people just decided to say, if you want the church, there it is for us, we'll go out. What do we do?
Yeah, I really think that there are different things that we can do, but also, most importantly, let us take it that each and every one of us ought to play a role. Let us not leave it to particular people. Let us not say, let it be the schools, that is their business. Let us not say, let it be just the church. Let each and every one of us play a part, play a role. Ask yourself, what is it that I can do so as to address this situation that is at play? Take, for instance, Andrew said that one of the things that comes in is the bit of money that the children are possibly being easily derailed because of money, the money issue. Or people, not only children, but also people. Why? Because there is a promise of lots and lots of monies. What do we do about that, therefore? I think it's high time we encourage even our children to be hardworking. I, for one, I come from Global Institute of IT and Business. It is an institute where we emphasize skills, practicals. And good enough, the government and the Ministry of Education is also pointing so much at skilling Ugandans. If you have a skill and you're at it, your heart is there, you're going to work hard at it, then you're not going to be deceived by this so much money which has so many strings attached to it. But the moment you have nothing to do and all you want to do is to wake up and do nothing, just wonder, what am I going to do? Where am I going to eat from? You see somebody is eating chicken, then you salivate. You see somebody putting on particular dressing, then you admire. I mean, then whoever comes up with money, you'll simply embrace and say, as long as I'm going to be given money, I don't care about whatever else happens, which is a very bad attitude. So we need to have our children change attitude, have to embrace work. What is it that is derailing them? Let us address that from the very bottom. And once we do that, I think we'll have a changed community. and we'll be able to make a headway in what is happening around us.
Bwana Kyeyune,
yes.
looking at you and what you do, the education bit of it, what should schools do? Because now we send young people there. Now for those in boarding, the head teacher and most of the staff don't stay there. They are left with one person who happens to be a matron or
custodian.
A custodian or something. One person who also at some point moves out to do his own things. What do we do? Because these kids stay there for 3 months.
Yes, the question of what do we do is broader. But I take you back to our guiding slogan that charity begins at home. Whereas we say charity begins at home, we skip one element, that all evil equally begins at home. So, whereas parents look at schools and they feel that schools should be seen at the forefront of addressing this, I feel a bigger role should be done right from home. Talking to our children, educating them, and parents, gone are the days where parents would totally shy away from talking or addressing some of these contagious issues to their children. I think we are at a point where we must call a spade, and we educate children that the world is this rotten, and this is how strong we should stand to fight these vices. Now, leaving the parent who has done her work or his role, the kids are now pushed to school, and we are equally expected to begin from there. So, I call upon school managers, one, to be very vigilant. If it means now planting more spy networks in schools, I think we should go that extra mile, because it is very clear children have learned this and they are ready to practice. You know, the problem behind this is you don't only stop at learning, but there is also that extra drive to practice what you have learned. So we are aware, just like we have been fighting phones in schools, we should now be targeting this other new habit of homosexuality. When it comes to theft, yes, schools have fought this, and it has even been planted in they have it in their school rules and regulations. Like any other habit, one thing we should add on our agenda, that there is now another habit of homosexuality. Two, besides that vigilancy and the spy networks, such that we quickly identify culprits and maybe eliminate them, we should do guidance and counseling. Because now someone will say, you have eliminated an identified child. I don't think you're helping the child. Yes, it is better we sacrifice that one rotten tomato than spoiling the other 1,000. But we are not saying we are sacrificing this child's education forever. We are only saying, let this child keep away from school. Maybe let this child be talked to by now the parents and all the other concerned stakeholders, and then later the child can be given chance, but in another school, not that very particular school, where this child will be now embraced and received as a new student, as a new wine, newborn. Two, besides guidance and counseling, I think we should, at one time the ministry had that program, and the packaging of that whole program into our curriculum, I think has not yet taken shape, but it was sexuality. There is a way they were trying to phrase it, not sex education, because many people perceived that with mixed feelings. Now they were trying to phrase it as sexuality or sexual. There is a term, I've lost out the exact term. Because I feel something more educative should be now inculcated into our curriculum so that we cause more awareness. Not with an intention of spoiling the children, as some people perceive it, but this time creating more awareness, alerting them that there is this problem and this is how best you can overcome it. Because what is very true, many students, because of the young age, they have been fooled. They end up doing this without really knowing. You see a child innocently lured into the game without knowing the dangers of what they are doing. Even if it was normal sexual practice, there are children that have ended up even becoming pregnant when in reality they were very innocent, they were just fooled around. So it should be that as parents do the part of educating the children, the guidance and counseling, I think schools should be seen doing it even in a multiplied form. so that children become more informed. But then, we have problems at universities, because when we talk of schools, people look at primary, secondary. We forget our children at higher institutions of learning, where maybe they are not even followed, because no lecturer will go into those other details. These children have their independent hostels. Whatever they do in the hostels out of the university, no one has an idea. And I don't think at one point, because when we say teachers, many people look at primary and secondary teachers and they really push them to the wall for having not done their part. But now when we talk of universities, I don't think you'll blame the lecturer for not creating that extra eye. It goes back to the parents. You have your child in the hostel. Do you know what they do in the hostels? Do you know whatever they possess? Do you know their friends, what they call friends? Because I only bought her a small radio. But after just a semester, the whole room is furnished with full TV screen, flat screen, shares this, shares the other. Where are they getting the money? Because we said the first trick these masterminders or perpetuators of this habit use is the ground of money. And that becomes a very big temptation. So we need to keep that extra eye with children who are at the universities. We need to dig deeper into, one, what they call friends, the people they associate with. Because let's not forget, show me your friend and I'll define your character or behavior. So we have this habit as well pronounced at universities and tertiary institutions, where the check measures are very minimal. At least at secondary level or primary level, we can easily detect. Then teachers also need to be empowered, because whereas this is going on, maybe some teachers don't even have full knowledge of how this habit penetrates a school setting, or how the children are convinced or confused into this. So I think we also need to go an extra mile into educating the teachers and all the school managers that we now have this big problem. So that is what I feel schools should do. But it is very tricky to convince the public that there is a school that will identify a child in this kind of practice and the child is spared. That is a little tricky. We shall have to inevitably eliminate.
But which school would announce and say, we have got a homosexual here, the whole world,
oh, yes.
We have a homosexual here, we have a lesbian.
Where we are in danger, the whole thing is done, first of all, with high levels of secrecy. It is handled in the with a lot of privacy. Because even if a school identified a child, maybe apart from whispering to the parent, we may not publicly talk about it, because the public will just get this other conviction that maybe in that school every child is already rotten and into that practice. So you find it is still handled with a lot of privacy, and that is why some people even shy away. Many parents out there shy away. They don't even want to talk about it. But I still want to tell the parent out there listening, we can no longer call it a secret. Just like you call it black and white. This is now an open disease, just like we had corona. I think one of the remedies in eradicating corona was continuous sensitization. With this homosexuality, let us teach the children that at one point you're going to be confused. At one point you're going to be convinced into this line, but that is Satan at play, and that is one thing you should immediately report off. And once school managers, such a habit is identified, let us immediately swing in action to save the generation.
The Minister for Integrity and
Ethics
in 2004 made a statement and said, if anybody is found committing this incredible and abominable act, should be checked and isolated from society.
Now, I am hesitant to go there, but I want to follow up from the issue of the school. We are all aware that at one point, there were some materials that were singled out, that infiltrated into the schools.
And they're in libraries.
Now, number two, there is a school that was actually on record where, things were found with students, with learners. Number two, the newspapers ran headlines showing that this vice had been put into to become part and parcel of the syllabus or part and parcel of the curriculum. And it was there on the headlines. So I think one of the things that we need actually to do is to work together with educational institutions and address this and get to the bottom of this. However, I want to say, one, let's separate the habit from the person. And for me, as a clergyman, let's separate the sin from the sinner. Because God loves the sinner, but he hates the sin. Because there is hope that a sinner can be helped and he can change, like my brother has actually alluded and said, with the counseling and guidance, somebody can reform and somebody can change. But I want also to say, can people out there who are promoting this vice spare us, the youngsters? Can they spare us? If it is not part of what is acceptable in our community, it's not acceptable in our society, can they leave us to practice what is acceptable? Let them not use their money, let them not coerce us, let them not attach strings to it, and leave us to promote our morals and live the way we think is better. For me, that would be my take.
That is for you as a clergyman. But
Yes.
as someone who is getting millions to promote the thing, and every time everyone sheep they get to their docket, those are millions entering their account.
That is now the biggest challenge we have. So in this battle, I still call upon every member of the country, every other stakeholder, every other person. Let it not be that schools, please help us fight. No. It is a duty, just like a football game where everyone has to play their number if we must all score. Otherwise, leaving it to a school where some teachers are not even bothered, by the way.
For them, they are paid to
They are
teach
only
history,
paid to teach
chemistry.
history. So issues of homosexuality, one does not even want to spare even to talk about it.
Yeah.
And by the way, society is funny. Even when you come up to be at the forefront of condemning it, one may mistakenly think
You are one of them.
you're one of them. So it's becoming a very hot issue, but we have to help one another. And what is very true, even some of the parents, painfully, are in the practice. So you find some of the children we have interacted with, the habit was in one way or the other, learned from home. So it is a very big challenge. We are in danger. Let us help one another.
They learn from home, spread it in schools.
I'm telling you, we are now
Then
waiting
back
for
to
children to
community.
come back to school. Whatever they have learned in the 2 months, someone said they keep longer at school, and maybe some of these things are more learned at school. Oh my God, the 2 months spent at home, a lot has been learned, and when they get in school, they are very eager to practice. So we are in danger, but
So learning is at home, practicing is at school.
is at school, because that is now the biggest challenge.
Mrs. Opolot, we should be out of the studio by now. What is your take on this? What message would you send out to every parent, to all teachers, to every community member? Because in silence, because like you said, there is a lot of secrecy, a lot of silence to this, but people are dying silently.
And medics are quiet.
And medics are also very silent
They are
about
handling
this.
these issues on a daily basis.
Yes. Like I've said before, I think let us all do our part. Let us move away from blaming the other, pointing fingers here and there, but let each one of us do our part. Andrew has just said, even the medics, because they are seeing this, they are the ones that are visited to rectify, so-called rectify, some of the pains that these other people have gone through. Now, take an opportunity at that point and speak to this person and say, you know what? This is dangerous. And if you don't get away from it, it is actually going to worsen your situation. So, like I've said, let each one of us do their part. Because some of these things that we are blaming, actually they are good. For instance, somebody can say, you see, this is a .com era. You see the computers. You see the phones. Yes, but they are good. Only that if we taught these children and people around how to use them correctly, then we wouldn't be suffering from this. So, where is the problem? The problem is, it is us, our values are not there. So, let us instill, let us inculcate these morals back into society. Once we do that, and everyone is playing a part as regards that, then I think and I feel we should be able to get there. And of course, most importantly, let us go back to God. Let God come in. Let God give us the wisdom. Let God direct us. Because such times happened even in the past. The times of Daniel, the times of Noah, all these challenges were there. But those who kept with God, those who were allowed God to direct them, I think they were able to overcome and they were able to be victors. So that also is very, very key and very important.
Andrew, is this vice called homosexuality and lesbianism, is it legal in Uganda?
Uganda's position is tricky. We have never had any pronouncement from our government legalizing this. I only thank God all the government officials who have at one point made a statement in line with homosexuality have been at the forefront of condemning it. So I must support and stand behind the Ugandan government in condemning this vice. So, and the only pain behind is that there are those officials undercover, big people undercover, who are also in the promotion of the same habit. I insist, undercover. So that is where the betrayal lies. And I think, like we said, we need to monitor the activities of different mushrooming NGOs and what in reality they do. Otherwise, they plant that we are doing this, but undercover, a lot is promoted. And who should be seen checking on the activities of various NGOs? I think that is where the government, whereas it has condemned, but I think it has been a toothless barking dog.
Now that is a true make of a historian. I remember that is one of the statements that made me laugh while studying history. You're a toothless barking bulldog. When you become a toothless barking bulldog, that literally means you're good at making noise, but you're doing very, very little or even nothing about this. And you want to be surprised that some people are good at making noise about this, yet in the actual sense they are doing very little. Please don't just end at condemning this thing. The committee set by Parliament. The other day, the Deputy Speaker did that. Please do a good job and don't just end at paperwork. Let's see something good come out of this. Otherwise, it's a good evening from here. How about each of us says a good night to our people, and then we can sign out.
Thank you very much, and we wish you every blessing. Parents out there, if you are not ready to parent, don't produce children. And I hope by now, before children go back to school, you have done due diligence and you have done the right job, because that is where it all begins. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also want to wish a good night to everyone. From me, Elizabeth Opolot, Global Institute of IT, and to the adults at tertiary level, parents, please let us not think that these are old enough, they can manage themselves. Even them, they actually need closer and more monitoring than ever before. Check them out, go and find out what they are doing, and really pray for them. Then I believe we'll be able to make it and we shall have a better future. Thank you.
Oh yes, finally I must thank all the listeners. And I remain Kyeyune Andrew, an educationist at the same time in active guidance and counseling of especially our children. Those who may need my services, find joy by calling 0706 28 1566, 0706 28 1566. We shall come and talk to the children. We shall talk to the stakeholders. We shall help one another build a better generation. Thank you.
With that, I want to assume and expect that you've got the message very clearly, and I am very sure you have a take home to tell your children. Like Reverend Francis has said, if you're a parent and you're not ready to parent, please don't produce. Otherwise, you do us a disservice. I imagine if at one point these transgender people, and you say you are a woman, yet you're actually a man, so they take you to a dormitory of women. What will happen there, only God knows. From us here, it's a good night. God bless you.
Amen.